slide so that people can go to, can see the Mentimeter. Exactly. So it's like a survey tool if you don't know it. So you can go to this website that is depicted there, www.menti.com, and once you go to the website, there's you can enter the code. Okay, so I can share my screen now, so we can just go to give people some time to go to the website. Also, I'm just gonna present. So let me just go to the first question back. So from where are you joining us today? I mean, we have a small crowd, so I think we might know from most of them, but it's still just to see what countries we cover now in the webinar from those that are there. Let's give it a bit more time for people to answer. PNG, of course, the two speakers, Chile, right spread of. We have one of the other network coordinators there who also joins in today, Paolo. Fiji, yes. It's good. I think we have 7 people on the line. So yeah, maybe we can just go to the next slide. That will be a bit more interesting. So what is the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear institutional arrangements? Just to kind of get a sense of what your intuition is when you hear the word governance, coordination. Yes. Anything else? Let's see. Compromise. Yeah, that's a good that's a good word, I guess. Captures it quite well. Yes. Let's wait one more second. Yes. Okay. Let's just we can stop here. So good to get some thoughts from you. Compromise or coordination. It's a big word. Okay, yes, then we can go to the actual webinar. I will stop sharing now and back to you, Amit.
Okay, thank you, Suzanne. Let me share my screen. Okay, thank you everyone for joining today. So the virtual section on the institutional arrangements. I'm just gonna go over on the importance of institutional arrangements. That's okay. So what is institutional arrangements? Institutional arrangements are mostly policies, systems, processes in place uh, for organizations to actually legislate, plan, or manage their activities, or to get uh, good structures in place where data information flows very efficiently and in a very coordinated manner. It's mostly when institutional arrangements, it's when you have in a government there is a lot of organizations who hold a lot of information, and then to gather this all information in one central place. For example, looking at climate change, we get information from the Ministry of Energy, the Ministry of Environment, um, and Ministry of Infrastructure, and and having a proper institutional arrangement where data can flow within these ministries to that central ministry, having a structure that is what's called institutional arrangements. So the process of data gathering and analysis for reporting to the UNFCCC, it 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 involves compiling information and data from your ministries, not only ministries, but there's also line agencies, intergovernmental agencies who provide data, looking at the electricity provider in a country. They also provide data to that would actually eventually the feed into the reportings, which will be used by the climate change division, and then it will be analyzed and reported in such a way that the climate change can use it in their national communications, BTRs, BURs, and all. So the climate reporting, it provides an opportunity to engage stakeholders, because many stakeholders do not understand about climate change and what are the data or what are the information that we require all the time. So having a proper institutional arrangement, it will encourage them, it will increase their knowledge of what type of information is requested from them for the purpose of climate change reporting. And and it always provides an opportunity to enhance their knowledge. We can um, when we have a proper institutional arrangements in place, um, they provide some kind of data to us, a specific kind of data, and then when there is an additional need, that's where that's where the central agency goes back to these data providers, and then they they do more of a knowledge sharing or awareness sessions, and teach them, okay, the, this is what you are doing, but we need additional things. So this is how you um, wait, let me give me 1 second. Okay, and we need additional things, additional information. So that provides an opportunity to help people understand, more about climate reporting, and why is it needed, and how the information they provide to us eventually feeds into the UNFCCC processes. The institutionalization of activities relating to reporting on climate change can be be achieved through a formal way of mandating these institutional arrangements. You can have this institutional structure approved by your cabinets, by your ministers, and have it legally mandated for all the agencies to provide information. So I guess Fiji would be providing more on the example of how they have actually mandated these institutional arrangements, or have it in one of their acts, and how it mandates people to provide data. Institutional arrangements for national climate reporting is a set of organizational structures and procedures, like I said, which eventually helps the central agencies of climate reporting to get information, uh, prepare the report, and submit it to the UNFCCC. And these are basically done through the national reports, such as national communications, uh, before biennial transparency reports, and moving forward, it will be biennial. Before it was biennial update reports, and moving forward from 2024 and onwards, it will be biennial transparency reports. So in order to develop a robust institutional framework, we need the resources, the right resources, the right systems in place, the right staffing in place, because most staff, they lack the technical knowledge of actually reporting or recording the proper data that is required for these reports. So this also gives a opportunity to have more awareness sessions and more discussions around this. So it is mostly upon the central agencies who have these institutional arrangements in place. It's upon them to actually do some regular sessions with their stakeholders, update them on the the processes, and then if there is any changes in the data requirements, data gathering, then it's upon on the central agencies to actually go out there with the stakeholders and let them know about the new requirements, and it's not only about letting them know, it's always about um, asking them on the difficulties, what kind of difficulties they are facing, and try to solve that through sessions, having or maybe providing more capacity building initiatives with them to the stakeholders, so they are more aware of what kind of information has to be provided. So it's basically to get information from other agencies and to one central agency, the climate agency, and then and uh, do an proper analysis and reporting of this information to UNFCCC. So the volume and diversity of information is very broad sometimes. So key thing mostly we should do, no, it's always good to have a institutional structure in place, mandated and all, but sometimes there are information which is very sensitive, information that not everyone that cannot be shared with everyone. So in terms of this, what a good way, a good practice would be is to have a memorandum of understandings between the agencies, have confidential non-disclosure agreements, something like that, so that protects the transfer of information from a particular agency to the central climate agency. So for example, if we look at getting data from oil companies, so because there are a number of oil companies in a particular country, so disclosing that information might be very risky. The and it and information can be um, uh, ga- gathered by their competitors or something like that. So in order to prevent that in an institutional arrangement, it's always better to have a memorandum of understanding between the two agencies, or a, uh confidentiality agreement, to protect the data that is shared between. So yeah, so basically um, that's that's from the importance of institutional arrangements. Um, Having data is very important, but there is a proper structure that needs to be followed. And in order to do this, in order to get this structure, we have to remember that it needs to be actually mandated, or mandated by law, or mandated um, by your minister, by cabinet, approved, so that people actually follow it. And in terms to protecting data, data sensitivity, we can always develop MOUs and formal agreements that protect the data, the transfer of data. And this data, climate data, will eventually feed into the climate reporting. That's basically it. It's not of uh, a, a business purpose. Mostly the thing, some stakeholders forget to understand that this data is only gathered for the sole purpose of climate reporting. So I guess that's a key message that we need to um, tell our stakeholders. Yeah, thanks. That was basically it from my side. I let the other presenters, experts in this field, or people who know how they have done institutional arrangements in their countries, to speak more on this, and you'll know more on the best practices from them. Let me just share the screen, and I'll give the floor to Janet from Fiji. Can you see the screen?
Not yet, Ravneet, not yet.
Sorry, I can't hear.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Janet. Can you see your screen? Is it
No,
shared?
No, it's
no,
not
not
shared
at the
yet,
moment.
Ravneet.
Okay. Let
Let's
me
try again.
try again. Now?
Yes,
Yes,
now it's
I
good.
can see it now. Um, I'm going to cut off my video, but
Yeah.
hello to the participants and thank you to the organizers for giving me the opportunity to present. Um, my name is Jeanette Mani and I'm the Fiji Civit Project Consultant. I'm working through the Global Green Growth Institute to help set up institutional arrangement for the Fiji project as well as MRV system setup. Okay. All right, next slide, please. Okay. Um, so first of all, how to develop an institutional arrangement. We have firstly, the key steps has been to identify the lead agency. And in Fiji's case, this is the Climate Change Division, now with the Office of the Prime Minister. And what we have identified in the process of doing our national communications was that we need to institutionalize it in terms of having legalized system to ensure that institutions are well placed to deliver on the data and information on a sustainable basis or to continue providing information. So in doing so, we have placed governance arrangements plus the sectoral roles and responsibilities in our Climate Change Act, which was passed in Parliament in 2021. Now, while this has been passed in Parliament, it is still to come into force. However, much of these will be operationalized through much of the system set up through the Fiji Civit project. So if you look at the key steps, which is from identifying the lead agency to establishing the roles and responsibilities, to communicating and engaging with stakeholders, as well as developing guidelines and procedures. Um, right. So the key part in terms of the governance structures and the sectoral responsibilities, we have taken the approach to putting this in the national legislation. And when we talk about the systematic processes when it comes to stakeholder engagement and the procedures, will be implemented through the or operationalized through the Fiji Civit project. Right? Next slide, please. Right. So the Climate Change Act, which I mentioned, is practically basically it has a an institutional arrangement. It has provisions for institutional arrangement on the transparency system as a whole. So we have this part 7 of the Climate Change Act, which you are free to look into as well. It is available online, the entire act, but the focus of my presentation would be the part 7, which is on measurement, reporting, and verification system for emissions and emission reduction. So this part basically focuses on establishing the framework for sector-based collection of data and information. And when we look at the transparency system, this is pretty much focused on the national greenhouse gas inventory. Um, and why we saw the need for this is because we had difficulty in collecting data or requesting this data from different line agencies as well as data providers, be it state-owned entities or the private sector. So, noting those challenges, we thought to create certain mandates within the Act for permanent secretaries of the ministries to be responsible to in providing or compiling these data and to ensure that they have it within their portfolios and to submit to another structure which we created in the Act, which is the N4C. Sorry, I haven't have it abbreviated in my presentation, but this N4C is the National Climate Change Coordination Committee. I will present the structure in the next slide to give you more insight into what this body will look like and what this body is mandated to do. So can we still go back to the previous slide, please? So this section creates a legal mandate, as I mentioned, for permanent secretaries to collect the sectoral emissions data, and this too on a regular basis, and to implement process and procedures to maintain and manage this data within their ministry. So overall, we were looking at the continuity of to ensure that this data is managed well and it is maintained, and so that it can be provided every single time there's as part of the reporting cycle, and also looking forward into the BTR requirements and how now countries previously how developing countries had flexibility, but now we all are under the same regime, and we will have to actually provide or develop these reports on a more regular basis, and to increase the robustness of how this reporting is done now. Next slide, please. Right, so as part of the reporting, we also have in the Act mandatory reporting on bulk sale of fuels. So we have provisions whereby a person or company who imports fuel into Fiji will need to sell or need to provide information biannually to the permanent secretary responsible for transport on the amount of fuel sold for the financial year. So now we're creating a legal mandate for the companies to provide this data. So now, it will not be on the fuel companies that they have this flexibility whether they want to report or provide this data or not. So we will have more of that kind of certainty in terms of data provision. The minister must develop and publish guidelines on the content. So this minister is referring to a minister responsible to climate change on the content and form of the information that is to be kept and provided to the relevant permanent secretary. So whilst the Act creates a very broad framework, there's some work that is needed to be done to create these guidelines and the content of the form, and which we are hoping to kind of set up through the Fiji CBIT project. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so in the Act, we also have a voluntary facility level reporting on emissions and emission reduction data. So at the moment, we're setting this to voluntary. If you look at Fiji, we're a very small emitting country. We do not have many industries. So it is only practical to have this at a voluntary level. But going forward, we would want to do it on a mandatory level, but it at the moment will not make much sense. However, we still have this in the Act to give the opportunity to facilities to see how much they actually emit and to set certain thresholds. The country is also looking on engaging in carbon markets, so it will make sense for these facilities to start on actually engaging on organizational level reporting. Okay, next slide, please. Right. So I've talked about the Climate Change Act, and like I mentioned, you are free to access that online. You will also find that on climate change Fiji Climate Change portal. Ravneet, I'm sure, can share the link in the chat box later. Now, looking onto the proposed institutional arrangement, much of the governance and the structures are already captured in the Act. And like I mentioned, the systems and the processes we are establishing to the Fiji CBIT project. The Fiji CBIT project itself is on strengthening capacity to ensure transparency of action implemented and support received to implement Fiji's NDC and low emissions development strategy. So that is the project, and that the objective of the project is to establish a system, a transparency system, which will allow for us to track on our NDCs as well as our low emissions development strategy. Next slide, please. Now, the structure we have proposed, and which is also based on the Act, is basically looking at. So I'll start off. I don't know if there's a pointer here. I can use a pointer. Ravneet, can you help me with kind of
Yeah. Let me know, and I'm not sure how to. Wait, let me see the point. No.
Oh, because I'm not presenting, I would need to
Yeah.
share my screen if I
Yeah.
need to. Okay. But
Just let
if
me know. I can.
yeah,
Can you
it would have
see
been
me?
really useful. Yeah, I can see your cursor.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll use my cursor.
Just looking at the middle of the diagram, that's where I wanted to start off with, is the National Climate Change Coordination Committee. Now, this committee is also established in the Climate Change Act, and this committee comprises of all the permanent secretaries. So if you look at the box on the left, yes, that's the permanent secretaries of all line ministries. And when I mean line ministries, these are the permanent secretaries that are responsible for energy, transport, industrial processes and product use, agriculture, forestry, and other land use and waste. So if you look at it, it's basically the 6 IPCC categories of the GHG inventory, what we're supposed to report on or gather data on. So we have this committee of all the permanent secretaries. Now, this is not only for the purposes of just climate reporting, but basically it's a whole of government approach for all climate change issues. So whether it be adaptation, oceans, mitigation, um, so it's basically to coordinate, the government can coordinate on all climate change issues. So what we have put in place is a prerogative for climate reporting, in particular on inventories. So we have this body that will coordinate on all climate change activities. Right, so here we have also on my right, the Minister for Climate Change. And according to the structure, the climate change minister will appoint a director for climate change. And here is the operational level coordinating body. So this is in every country, it will be the climate change division. And importantly, the climate change division will be the secretariat to the N4C, so the main coordinating body. Now, why this N4C is important? Because for all the climate reporting, any technical working group will be established through the N4C. The importance of that, as I mentioned, is because it is comprising of all the other line ministries. It will be easy to kind of gather all technical expertise from other line ministries as well as to source data, right? So like I mentioned here, N4C may form technical working groups. And in these technical working groups, we can also bring in the academic institutes, NGOs and CSOs, and the state entities. So there's also provisions on the creation of technical working group in the Act. So again, these are all mandated in the Climate Change Act. Here, I forgot to mention, the PS responsible for climate change will chair the committee. So we know that there's that kind of link, and the responsibility will lie on the permanent secretary for climate change. Right. In the Act, we also have focal points. So every line ministry will have a climate change focal point, which should also make our work easy. by getting support and to share information easily across to line ministries. So in the Act currently, the N4C is to meet at least 2 times in a year. However, the focal points will be working all year round, right? So we will have the focal points easily accessible in different line ministries. And if we have like major concerns in terms of the start of a reporting cycle, we'll be able to coordinate that through the N4C. Great, so the focal points will basically support in the implementation of Climate Change Act and reporting activities. And so that's the direct link with the climate change division. Right. Also, if you notice what I've shared in terms of the state entity and the private sector, so in the Act, it becomes the responsibility of the permanent secretaries to request data or to gather the data from the state entities. Because now the permanent secretaries will be providing the emissions related data to the N4C on a biennial basis, right? So it is important now that the permanent secretaries will deal with the state entities and the private sector and all these sectors that they are responsible for. So that kind of makes the whole operation, well, this is in theory at the moment. We have still yet to test this out. But through our PTCBIT project, we will socialize this and get formal approval for this setup. So we know that this will be in place and implemented in our next upcoming reporting, which will be the national communication, the fourth national communication and the BTR. Just like to mention again that we have a management level coordination mechanism, which is comprising of the National Climate Change Coordination Committee, and at operational level we have the Climate Change Division working very closely with the focal points. I like to pause for a minute and see if there's any questions from the floor. No? Okay, next slide, please. Right. So, like I mentioned, the management level coordinating body, the N4C. Now, its key responsibilities will be to require and monitor update on national reports and reporting timelines to UNFCCC. Now, we will have this kind of control or a mechanism in place to ensure that the reportings are taken seriously at a management level as well as the operational level. And once the reports are completed, it will be the responsibility of the N4C to endorse it. So it gives much more ownership to the N4C on the climate reportings, right? So what we have noticed previously, it is just a division doing this reporting and it's not much socialized. No one really knows about why do we do this reporting, how useful it is, what value it holds. But now we are trying to institutionalize the climate reporting and to kind of emphasize on its value and importance. And through the CBIT work, we are proposing much of these roles and responsibilities in the TORs themselves. So basically what I have here is that, some specific requirements on when each member of the N4C needs to start submitting its emissions related data. So, despite the fact that it is not, even if it's not any reporting year, these data still needs to be updated and provided. So we have a good series of data available when it's the actual reporting cycle. So we know that each member of the N4C will be responsible, of course, and ensuring that reporting requirements are met within their ministries. And this forum is not only for providing the data, but also for communicating challenges. And in this way, because the Climate Change Division is the secretariat of the N4C, we will be able to capture the challenges and at the same time help direct resources towards ministries in addressing their challenges. So I'm sure other countries are all familiar with the opportunity that is available, opportunity and resources that are available for transparency, but really how to provide the real directed support for our transparency needs, right? In terms of data collection templates, training staff in terms of collecting and analyzing data, um, what kind of data collection tools are needed. So, it gives us more insight in terms of what are the challenges at operational level in terms of data collection. What are the existing data? What are the non-existing data? So everything should be communicated through the forum. So we'll have a proper organized forum to communicate these challenges and then be sure on how to address these through the inventory improvement plans, for example. Right, next slide, please. Okay, so at the operational level coordinating body, this is the Climate Change Division, also working through the focal points for the different line ministries. And so the key responsibilities will be to allocate responsibilities to other agencies or line ministries where we see fit for the components of the national communication and the BTR. So ensuring that we have a clear and a relevant lead for each section. So for the purposes of this and through the Fiji CBIT project, what we have developed for the division itself is standard operating procedures on how do we implement reporting, how do we implement the projects for reporting so that we know that each section is being compiled in a more systematic and in a more robust way. So we have identified clear leads. So just on a bit of an experience in doing this national communication, before it became the sole responsibility for, let's say, only the coordinator, the project coordinator, and a specific stream, let's say the mitigation stream. So it didn't take a whole of division approach in terms of providing information for the purposes of compiling these reports. And it became a bit of a tedious task in terms of compiling this data and information, which was not always available. So it always involved desktop reviews, but it was never like we could not fully meet the requirements and provide clear and transparent information. So that was always a challenge, and it was not only for the greenhouse gas inventory, but for all the other sections as well. And now with the BTR and the ETF in place, we would need to take a more coordinated approach in terms of how do we report. At the same time, CCD should be responsible for the QA/QC for both the data providers and the national entity. So we know that the data that is provided is of quality and is robust. Next slide, please. Great. So I just wanted to also share a template that we are developing through the Fiji CBIT project in terms of identifying sectoral roles and arrangements. Basically, what we need is a technical coordinator, and we can have this for not only the GAT inventory development, but maybe for each section, we should do this on an organizational base level. So I'm sure the slides will be shared with you, and I think I'm going a bit over time, but this will be shared with you. Yes. For potential improvements in the management structure of the transparency system, can you click one more time? Yes. Right. So the focal points, we can establish working groups to the ministry focal points. It is important to have data governance and data transfer agreements. One thing we will be doing through the Fiji CBIT project is to establish data sharing agreements Now it will be the responsibility of, like I mentioned, permanent secretaries of line ministries. So we will be seeing the need where there's a need. We'll be developing data sharing agreements either with the private sector and the ministry responsible, or the state entity and the ministry responsible. So yeah, we'll be doing a bit of a mapping exercise there. In terms of surveys for data collection, these need to be designed and piloted. This is one of the activities any country can do through the transparency support that may be available. Approval mechanism to ensure timely inventory approvals. Like I mentioned, these will be done through our N4C as proposed in our institutional arrangement, and the training of personnel and the capacity building. Lastly, once we have improved on our activity data, at least at tier 1 level, our next approach will be to develop country-specific emission factor and to shift towards tier 2. So thank you. I think this is the end of my slides. Thank you very much. Time for any questions.
Thank you, Janet, for that presentation. I guess we'll just go over to Mr. Jason now, and then we'll save questions for the last. Jason, can you hear me?
Yeah, Ravi, thank you. I can hear you. I'm sorry, I cannot see the slides.
Now?
Not yet, sorry, man.
Give me a minute.
I can see them.
Sorry, guys. It's only me, I guess. I cannot see it from the side.
Just give me one more minute. Can you see it now?
Yeah, I can see it. I don't know if Jason. That's a bit difficult if you can't see the slide.
I'm sorry, guys. Sorry.
No, no worries. No.
Wait. Let me fix it. Don't worry. Try to fix this. Okay. Can you see it now, Jason?
Oh, I'm sorry. I still can't see. I mean,
But
I saw,
what about the
saw the
others?
present.
Others, can you see it?
I can see it. Yes.
Okay, Jason.
Must be on me.
Yeah. Why don't we? Because the others can see. Why don't you open your presentation on your own PC? And whenever you say next slide, I'll just switch, and we can be on the same slide.
Can probably do that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm on the. It's right, improvising. Anyways, I'm on the cover slide now.
Yeah, on the cover slide now.
You guys all there?
Yeah.
All right, great. So thank you very much, Revnit, and apologies for that delay to technology. Anyway, so I'll be presenting on institutional arrangement for the transfer system from PNG, like some of the experience and some of the best lessons that we blend. So next slide, please.
Next
Okay.
slide.
I hope you guys know the presentation outline now. So this is the outline of my presentation. I just touch on a bit of the background, look at some of the responsibilities, touch on a bit on the sub-technical working committees, the greenhouse gas inventory team, the data sharing arrangement for the greenhouse inventory, and some of the areas of improvement. Next slide. So just to give a brief, so Revnit?
Next slide, yeah.
Yeah, background slide. Yeah. All right, so just to give a brief background on Papua New Guinea, so PNG, we submitted our first national communication in 2002. Then in 2015, we submitted our second national communication. Our first biannual update report in 2019, and the second biannual update report, including the national inventory report in 2002, that was last year. And the second one we prepared on a project basis. So after, and then in 2015, we decided to sort of institutionalize the whole process of preparing national communications and biannual update reports. So the Climate Change and Development Authority is sort of the mandated entity for preparing these reports. And CCDA, in short, was able to prepare the first biannual update report, the second biannual update report, including the national inventory report, with technical support from JICA and FAO. So just sort of one of the, if you can notice, the impacts of institutionalizing this whole process is the submission dates. So if you notice, the national communications, first national communications, and second one took like almost 13 years to submit the second compared to the first. And then once we institutionalized the process, it sort of reduced the submission dates to sort of 3 years, 4 years. So that's one of the good impacts of institutionalizing this preparation of these reports. Next slide, please. Okay, just touching a bit on the responsibilities of the CCDA, because that's the mandated entity for preparing these reports. So they keep the sub-technical working committees informed. So in terms of any progress or whatsoever, like the new reporting requirements under the Paris Agreement, the transparency framework under the Paris Agreement, that's the CCDA's role to inform sub-technical working committees. We compile all the sections of the reports, the inventory, the mitigation actions, climate change, adaptation, support receive, all that to document. We also develop and maintain a archiving system because there's all this information, and these reports are going to be regularly developed. That's why we sort of develop an archiving system to store all this information, so institutional memory, so this information don't get lost. Also develop we also collect and maintain statistical records, conduct some evaluation exercise to identify lessons learned and areas of improvement. And I think one of the other areas is the ICA process, international consultation analysis process. That's under the previous MRV framework, that after you submit the report, you have to go through this whole ICA process. But that's sort of the role of CCDA. So to go through the role of the ICA process, and then whatever improvements identified by the ICA process, we inform our sub-technical working committees, our stakeholders, and then that's sort of the areas that we have to improve in the next reporting cycle. Next slide, please. So just to touch a bit on the sub-technical working committees, so we decided to establish 2 sub-technical working committees. That's for the energy and AFOLU sector. The reason here is because, in PNG circumstances, these are sort of two large sectors in PNG. So there's like a lot of, I would say, institution or stakeholders involved in these 2 sectors. So we decided to establish this two sub-technical working committees. So it consists of key stakeholders within these 2 sectors, the energy and the AFOLU sector. And sorry, one point I forgot to mention here is the composition. It normally consists of the technical people, not too much on the management level, composed of the technical experts within these key stakeholders, key sector agencies. So their responsibilities to sub-technical committees to provide technical inputs on how to improve or prepare our final update report, in terms of improving our data collection, identifying new data providers. They provide these technical inputs, and then also they sort of comment on the reports after CCDA prepare. After CCDA prepare the reports, they comment on it, go through, provide the inputs on it, and then finalize the reports and submit to the NFCCC. In addition to this, there are also other information providers for the waste eco sector, but they're not really that, like for now, we don't really see unless that necessary to establish a sub-technology committee because these two sectors are still like very, very small in PNG. Next slide, please. So touching on the GHG inventory team. So this is the inventory team in between the Climate Change Development Authority. So you can see there's a general manager who sort of provides an overall oversight of the whole function of this team. And then there's the inventory coordinator who sort of is responsible for planning and management of the inventory process in terms of planning on where to connect data and the normal planning planning and management of the whole inventory process, timelines, deadlines, and all that. It's sort of the roles of the inventory coordinator. The compiler, so the compiler's main responsibility is to compile information from all the sector leads. So within the inventory itself, the compiler is sort of responsible for compiling all that, conducting the quality key category analysis, responsible for developing the overall emission for the country itself. It's sort of the role of the inventory compiler. And then you have each sector experts. So there's like 5 experts there: energy, IPU, agriculture, LUCF, and waste. So their roles are basically to collect data from the providers, conduct the QC, and then do the actual estimations of the sector itself, and then send the information to the inventory compiler to compile all of them. Next slide. This is the inventory data sharing arrangement. So as you can see there, Climate Change and Development Authority is seated there. Just for clarity's sake, this one is specifically for the activity data, and probably to some extent the emission factor. That's basically from the forestry sector. So they provide all that information to CDA. CDA does the estimations and analysis of this data. So in the blue on top there is the energy sector. So information is provided by the National Energy Authority and Research Center. So those information provided to the CDA. On your right is the industrial process and product use. So currently there's only 2 because of the scope of PNG. There's not much industrial processes happening, but in terms of product use, yes, it's occurring PNG. So as you can see there's the nitrous oxide and lubricants for this particular for IPU. So these 2 private companies provide the data to CCD. At the bottom there is for the waste sector. So we have the National Capital District, National Statistics Office, and Water PNG. So this National Capital District Commission and Water PNG are sort of the management of waste in PNG. But for so you may be wondering for why National Statistics, because National Statistics Office provides the population data, and the population data is used to estimate the waste per population. On the left-hand side is for the agriculture, forestry, and other land use sector. So there's 2 lead agencies that we get data from. There's the PNG Forest Authority, it's for the forestry sector, and LULUCF sector. They conduct sort of LULUCF assessments and then provide the data to CCDA, and agriculture and livestock, Department of Agriculture and Livestock. So that's most of the data is for livestock data, comes from this, and also fertilizers. The Department of Agriculture provides those data to CCDA. Next slide, please. So I think this is my last slide. So I wouldn't at this stage there's still areas of improvement. I wouldn't say it's a perfect system. The whole idea is to establish and sort of make continuous improvement as every year, every reporting cycle. So we've developed an improvement plan and we've identified data gaps in the inventory system. In the greenhouse gas inventory. So there might be new additional data providers that will be included in the institutional arrangement moving forward. That's where we're going to enhance that for the especially for the greenhouse gas inventory reporting. We also plan on enhancing the reporting for the mitigation actions, adaptation actions, tracking of NDCs, and support needed receive. Basically, to enhance the institutional arrangement for the enhanced transparency framework. And I believe that brings me to the end of my slide. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Jason, for that wonderful and informative presentation. We can now move on to question and answer session. Please, just opening the floor. If anyone has a question, please go ahead. Maybe I'll start off things. Jason, thank you for that presentation. Just wondering on on the response of on this slide. You say that these agencies they are the ones providing data. How was the response like initially when these agencies were approached saying to provide information and data to the Climate Change Development Authority in PNG?
Thank you, Rajneet. So if you notice, most of these agencies are government agencies. So also in terms of continuity they're providing, it may not be an issue. But I think for in terms of the actual beginning, when we started, when we consulted and provide this information, this was a bit challenging because we had to sort of explain the reason why we have to report and this data set that we require from them. Some they provide, data sets that meet the IPCC guidelines. It was a bit challenging, and the time it took for them to provide that information, it's like almost 1 year to actually provide this information to us, and we just kept on following up until finally they followed up. But that was for the first cycle, and then the second one, it was a bit easy because they already know, okay, yes, this is what CDA requires, so we just provide it to them. Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yes, definitely. I guess it's the first step that is the most challenging one. But once you're through with that first step, things after that is always easier. Yes, Janet, I see you have a question. Please go ahead.
Jason, I think I have this question in line with what Ravneet also asked, but I just also wanted to know if you have specific, like an MOU or a data sharing agreement in place with all your stakeholders, or is it just on request basis?
Thank you, Janet. I would say both. So we have an MOU because it depends on the from ours, it depends on the agency that's providing data. We ask that, do you need an MOU in place for you to provide the data on a continuous basis? And if they agree, then we develop. But some they said it's okay, it's just you can just provide upon your request. So for now we have like two MOUs, and the other others not. Just depends on our request.
Yeah, I know sometimes, and also based on experience, when the staffing changes, then your relationship with the organization, just also changes. So, just to ensure that sometimes there's that continuity. So, like, if you already requesting on just a request basis, then that works, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, that's true. That's also that's a good point. Yeah, I mean, we don't want to force the agency providing information because it's totally up to them, like whether they want to have an MOU in place or not. So
Mm,
we, yeah,
okay, thank
yeah.
you.
Thank you. I guess Paulo has a question. Paulo, do you want to take the floor, or I can just read it out?
Hello, colleagues. This is a pleasure to stay here and hear about what you're doing for institutional arrangement. I think a very crucial part of the institutional arrangement is the replication with the time, especially with the capacity building, and especially with the technical capacity. And my question is regarding to how you are integrating in this institutional arrangement all the capacity trainings or something like this to assure the technical capacities in a sustainable manner with the time, because one, I think all the countries we have the same problem that we have a very high rotation of professionals in our teams. But are you thinking about a plan for capacity building or something like this? This is my general question. It's for both countries. It's for the two countries. Thanks.
Whoever wants to go first.
Okay, sorry, bro. Okay, probably I can start. In terms of capacity building, yeah. So because we have sector leads, so normally we send this for these sector leads to attend this training. So they sort of get trained and come back. And in addition to that, we also invite the set technical working committees. So those members of the committees, because like I said, the composition is made up of technical experts within this agency. So we sort of send these experts to attend this training. That's sort of our approach that we are currently taking.
Thanks, Jason. Janet?
Yes, thanks, Paolo, for your question. Well, we have the identified focal points within ministries and within the key roles of the operational level management, which is CCD. We've kept this in the key responsibilities of ensuring that that's instituted within the key roles of climate change division to provide capacity building support, whether it's through the UNFCCC support that is available. So previously, I think we've had the opportunity available whereby UNFCCC invited experts to participate in the greenhouse gas inventory course. So in that way, we had engaged um, staff from other ministries to participate in the course. Now that was one-off, but we're hoping that we would have that opportunity available again so we can train more people. But also at the same time, we can also adopt the approach to have training of trainers. So while some of us who are still in the division have undergone that course, we can now train the focal points in the different line ministries also. So we've also had the ICAT project, and we've had some experts from the agriculture sector also trained. So at the moment, we do have small cohort of trained experts in inventory work. However, you rightfully mentioned the high staff turnover, so that's a bit of a concern. But because we have institutionalized the whole process, we will be doing ongoing trainings. So maybe 1 or 2 trainings in an year. But yes, definitely that capacity building is something that we are very keen on providing on an ongoing basis. Thanks.
Thanks, Janet. Just to add on, I guess ju- for sustainability in terms of capacity building, what something now we should start to look at is whenever there is a new hire, new staff coming in, and in their induction package, these type of information, this type of training materials should be available, so that once they can, well, one, they can start learning it when they when they start, but we all know that they would not uh, get the whole gist of it at first, right? So once they start doing the work, they can always go back and reference it, and check. Okay, yeah, this is how we should be doing the things, and this is how information should flow from this ministry and this ministry. Okay, I'm doing the right thing here, just to reference back and check in these type of materials. That's might be one way for some countries and might not. So it totally depends on each country's own situation. I guess Suzanne has a question. Thank you, Suzanne. Do you want to take the floor, Suzanne? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just gonna, thank you, Ravneet, and thank you for Jeanette and Jason. Really interesting presentations. Just a quick follow-up question to Jason. You presented on the kind of inventory, institutional arrangements, and PNG. I was just wondering if there are similar arrangements available kind of for tracking other climate change areas, such as like adaptation, also of course for tracking of NDC and. All right. Yes. Okay. Right. Adaptation actions. Sorry, I overlooked this. Yeah. No, that's good. Okay. That's good. Thanks a lot.
Yeah,
I
check,
see.
Jason.
I
If you
see.
want to take the floor, Jason, just to tell us on your plans on how you're going to address these things.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Thank you, Susan, for that question. So yeah, as a whole, I just presented on the institutional arrangement for the inventory because that's sort of a complicated one. But also, in addition to that, there's also other areas that we have to establish our institutional arrangement, and I think that's sort of what we plan on doing for this next cycle. Because to be honest, in the first the reports were more focused on the inventories and the mitigation actions, because mitigation actions sort of more correlates with the inventory. So mitigation actions, I guess we're still gonna use the sort of similar structure with the inventory, but for the adaptation, yeah, that's something we still have to establish, to be honest. I mean, for the reporting of the BORs, there's no component on adaptation, so we didn't really establish much institutional arrangement for that. So that's sort of what we plan on doing for this for the BTR, and as well as the support needed and received. Support needed and received was basically information got taken from desktop research. So we still have to establish our proper proper sort of institution to report on support needed and received. But basically needed, because that's something that was done on the information was basically on desktop research. Yeah, I hope that answers your questions.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. Any other questions from anyone else? I think we are totally on time right now. We're on the question and answer session, so yes, that's good. Probably, yeah, yes, Suzanne.
Sorry, just one question to Jeanette. Yet I just wanted to hear. I'm just curious about like what the perception is of like the different stakeholders towards the Climate Change Act and the kind of the upcoming reporting commitments, and are they positive and cooperative, and or was there some resistance when the act was kind of established, and also going forward, do you expect some resistance from some of the kind of line ministries and other data providers? That would be interesting to hear.
Thanks, Susan. That's a very interesting question. So initially, I think during consultations, people were generally very supportive, the line ministries as well. You know, I think they understood their role, but more so in terms of operationalizing this and trying to assist them. Like I mentioned, it is very open at the moment in terms of also hearing out some of their challenges and finding ways to support them. So at the moment, there's no resistance, but maybe when we are implementing it, we might hear of some challenges, and I think that's where the real task will be in terms of providing support. So no resistance at the moment, and yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, you will be busy in the CBIT project, I guess. There will be all the actual work to be done. Thanks a lot,
Of
Jeanette.
course, welcome.
Thanks, guys. Suzanne, let's do Menti first, and then I'll do just closing sum up, and then we'll
Okay.
close.
Yes, yeah. I mean, we only have a few people here, but let's do that anyhow.
Yeah, just do
So if you stop sharing, then I can share, I guess. Let me see. Or I should be able to do that. Is it now here? Start presenting, yes. Okay, so how useful did you find this webinar? It's, yeah, we always, in all the activities we are doing in the different networks, we just want to, yeah, get some insight and get some feedback from of how we can improve, or if there's anything that wasn't good or anything that was particularly good. Okay, apparently it was really useful. That's that's really good. Good to hear. Even though it was a small crowd, it's good to get. Yeah, but we had a really interesting presentation, so I think that was
I
really
guess
good.
it was very informative.
It
It's a
was,
shame
yeah.
that other people could not join, but yeah, we
Yes,
have the
yeah,
recording, so let's hope.
exactly.
Fingers
And there will
crossed.
be other webinars in the future.
Definitely.
So yes, just to get some kind of yeah, just to hear from you, are there any other areas that you'd like to see for kind of this experience sharing webinars? We have already a few kind of planned within the work plan of the the regional transparency network in the Pacific, but maybe there will be other areas that you're particularly interested. Yeah, NDC tracking, yes, that's of course a big area, and a lot to see, a lot to share, a lot to learn. Modeling, yes. So of course related to tracking, M&E, yeah, M&E accreditation, because it's also another big black box. Yeah, no, that's all important topics, and we see how we can, yeah, mitigation analysis, of course. Yeah, we have to see where we can cover different webinars either this year, then also, yeah, in the coming years, because the project will be, yeah, running for a few years. So we will take the opportunity to do more experience sharing webinars, also maybe across networks, so maybe Asia Pacific. Yes, just one last question. If there's anything you think we can improve, either on the links, on the format, more interaction, anything that you think could be useful to look out for in the next webinars. Maybe nothing to improve apparently. But this is also fun. More countries to present. Yes.
Yeah, I guess if we have a few more countries, it will get the conversation going. Yeah.
Yes.
Definitely.
Definitely.
Thanks for that.
Okay, good. Yes, thanks a lot. Thank you for engaging. I'm just gonna stop sharing just a second. Stop sharing here. Yes, over and back to you, Ravneet.
Okay. Okay, yeah, thank you guys. Thank you everyone for attending today. I know it's a small crowd, but a lot of information flowing, a lot of things learned, and hopefully people will view the recordings and try to see what was discussed, what was presented. I will definitely encourage people to do it. And just want to say thank you for your time, taking out the time, to our presenters and our participants also for being here today and and presenting. Just to sum up, I guess there was a lot of lessons learned from Fiji. The interesting thing I got was that the the legal mandate from the act, it kind of creates that enabling power, um, and and the for stakeholders to oh yeah, we have to do this because it's the law, we have to submit, right? So it creates that that I'm losing the word. Okay. Yeah, you know what I mean, right? So uh, that is something that other countries can look up and take back to get something legally mandated, and also the focal points. It focal having people in this line ministries, line agencies is very important. Like Janet mentioned, they have people established in within those ministries who are responsible of uh, giving data information about climate change uh, to the climate change division whenever or necessary. And she also mentioned that they have a specific TORs, which is also really good. So it really defines their role in the whole structure, because there are usually people who say, in the line ministries, oh, I can't do this. It's not in my JD. It's not in my KPI. I don't really need to do this. But that's a really good way to actually impose that sense of responsibility within those people. So that's really good. In terms of PNG, I guess they have already done this in the GHG inventory sector, which is really great. It's one of the most hardest things to do, and to be able to do that is an achievement of its own. And they are planning to do it in other mitigation areas, NDC tracking, support receives, which is really great. You can also um, you know see the IDs from Fiji and take it back to PNG, and try to do those legally mandated TOR stuffs. Um, and yeah, I just wanted to say uh, uh, thank you for both of the presenters and everyone here today. From my side, thank you. I guess we are done. Suzanne, you have any final words?
Oh, also just, yeah, thank you so much for coming, for joining, of course, the presenters, and yeah, looking forward to more activities in the network, and yeah, just to, yeah, very excited for the upcoming work and engaging with you all and keeping in touch. Thanks so much.
Thank
Have
you,
a great
everyone.
day.
You guys have a great day. Good
Thank you.
night,
Bye.
and see you guys
Bye
later.
bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you.